working with artists a nightmare? The answer will last 40 minutes.
Can you hear me? Okay. Hello. Thank you for applause. I hope you're gonna like it. The title is very provocative, as you see. And my first question, how many artists do we have here? Okay, don't beat me. And how many managers? Managers. Okay, it couldn't be better. So, my name is Konrad Czernik, and I'm working in Techland for almost 11 years now. I started doing concept arts of environment, and the reason I was there was the passion of creating things visually. And I've never considered myself as an artist, but I was doing comic books, so it's close to games because of the pop culture. And I didn't play that much, so my expectations for games were very high. I was out the industry, so I was hoping to see something like Hollywood movies or something like that. So. I struggled a lot in the beginning, so I know how hard it was for my friends to work with me. And actually, this presentation is some about me, some about cases that I've observed during this time. And right now, I'm a lead concept artist. I'm hiring artists and working with them in the one team or many teams, depending on the production. So I'd like to share some thoughts. It's not official statement of Techland. It's mostly my thoughts and my experiences. So I'd be more than happy to listen to your feedback after this presentation, and of course I will try to rush up just to leave some time for questions and or flaming me here. So. Those are all my graphics. Some of you are asking for my portfolio. So this is what I do, and this is how I draw. But no, I'm just, but yeah, I did it, but yeah. I had really fun doing this presentation for you, and I'm very excited to sharing those thoughts right now. So as I said, I didn't consider myself as an artist for a long time, and I don't until today, because I see visual designer role is something different than making beautiful pictures or digging deeper under meaningful things that artists are doing in the galleries or in the museums, what we see. But the level of workshop has to be very high in industry. And my adventure with the image was began very early when I was a child. Funny thing, I was making gore games before I know. I even expected to get to Techland, which is doing zombie games and slashing zombies. Even I had problem with the psychologists because they thought there is something wrong in my home because I was drawing things like flaming woods with animals when the subject was woods. So I did something gore before I even know it's gore. And also my background is comic books, animation approach, because of Disney, Miyazaki movies, I love them a lot. So that was the 2D thing. And also I'm a sculptor, I'm making pottery and ceramics, and actually a lot of visual design for different companies, making very various things. So concept art is one of the fields. And I don't wear a beret, I don't use paints, but stereotype of the artist is, as I said a few seconds ago, but also the thing in common that I observe in concept art field, any kind of art in games, is very high ego of people who are making something visually because of lack of distance, and we take everything emotionally. So the first thing I learned was the hiding ego to the pocket when I was working in a team, and I found out a very harsh way how to manage my my ego while I was working with my friends, because I was expecting a lot different elements that I actually saw in the games because of the constraints, because technical limitations and such. So the presentation will show some cases that are based on successes and some of the fails. So I think fails are more interesting for you because we learn more on fails than the successes mostly. And yeah, so one thing for all of you guys about the stereotypes, you know about the stereotypes, and I will use stereotypes here as well. Artist divas are artists, some drama queens. Some of you probably had chance to meet that stereotype and actually realize that there is this kind of true because of ego, because of lack of distance, because of emotionally treating what we do, because whenever you do art, you need to involve emotionally in what you do. And but in Techland, we've changed the structure, so we are working in multidisciplinary teams, and actually that works very well because we're not isolating each other. We don't isolate each other from other faculties, and that works really nice. And that builds big respect between each other. And we want to make some kind of creative sanctuary in our culture. So we have, I like to call it creative temple. The thing that works the most in multidisciplinary teams are the common goal, because whenever we look in the same direction, it helps us a lot to achieve better solutions, better effects. And actually, people, when they work in multidisciplinary teams, are more responsible for what they do and what they for their acts and for their design. Actually, because they have to, we have to cooperate in complex team. So another thing is. We got to know that Poland is a very specific place, and we are very talented developers. We can see it in our games that we released previous years. And we actually are mix, in my opinion, we are a mix of creativity and technical skills, which is very good. And our artists are very open for technical skills as well. And actually, that's what I see in many countries, of course. But as I see in my friends' examples, in my friends' companies, that's what I observe in almost in every place here. So probably that's why we have so many companies here. And our main feature is creativity, in my opinion. So that's what I will focus here. And this presentation is mostly about investing in people, how to not lose them, how to appreciate them, how to invest in their strengths, and how to build the respect in the team. And I'm telling that, and I know I sound like a person who dictates how to do this, but actually I felt so many times that I can share some experience from my side. after so many years, I treat my my team like a family right now, because actually this is your environment that you're going to work, and you don't want to shit in your own nest. Oops. But yes, you don't want to destroy the environment that you are going to live for so many hours and creating amazing things. So this is the plot in the beginning, and then right now to the artist. So every time we hire someone, we look at the hard skills. So is the portfolio nice, and is the quality of the arts efficient to communicate some emotions, some space, so to make a believable, interesting objects like weapons, like assets, props, and characters and environment, whatever it is. But it shows, of course, the quality, the time, the accuracy, the agility, but soft skills are the most important thing for me over the hard skills, because being professional is not only doing beautiful and actually precise, good designed things. It's all about communication. Actually, what I see from an artist side, artists very often wants to be free and want to create things from a blue sky. And actually, what I see after those years, I can say that it's not true, because leaving artists with a totally blank space and big scope is the worst thing you can actually do. And that's one thing. The worst scope is the wide scope, in my opinion. So creating briefs is something that helps a lot. And actually, if there is no brief, that's artist's responsibility for ask for details, for limitations, for limits, some constraints. Because without that, you will not do anything accurate to the project. If you're From my experience, when I was working on many cases, I was provoking discussions through my images very often. Sometimes when when we thought we agree, we actually didn't. We actually weren't on the same page. So I was provoking the discussions by provocative art sometimes. And actually, that showed how far away we are from each other, and how different is our how different is our image in our heads to the brief or the talk that we just agreed. And actually, that's one thing. From other side, I have observed a few artists who are, I call them Mr. Office guy, who are waiting for complete documentation and working on just after all documentation, all data are set. And actually, that's other evil, because that's game development, and you never get complete brief, because the project changes. We design through iteration, and that's very organic. So what I recommend our artists to do is to make something in the beginning, just to support communication, building the bridge of different approaches, and find those pillars that are in the brief and invest in them, and do something, do some kind of brainstorming, do little piece, thumbnails, rough sketches, which are very helpful. We don't have that time to show that kind of things, but if someone is interested, I can show my personal pieces after. How do I work on my pieces that I do after work, and that's very helpful. So another thing is the theory, how other pipelines and processes look like. So there are many videos and articles on the websites how to draw, how to paint, and how to make something spectacular. But there are not too many things that tells about how to design and how to cooperate in the team. So I totally recommend to dig deeper under after the first layer of those videos that shows how to paint. So I totally recommend to read, learn, listen, and talk to people, and join events and share knowledge, like events like this. Actually, that's where I learned the most, talking to the people and listening to them, knowing their cases, because actually cases are very common in different companies. And sharing experience is something extraordinary in our field, because as I watch many videos, only game development supports that kind of sharing knowledge that we do here. So that's a beautiful thing, and that's why I would want to quit this area. And actually, there is one sentence that we have in our studio on the wall: sharing knowledge is the only way to achieve immortality. And that's kind of true for me, because we're just mirroring whatever we know. Everything you know, you learned from somewhere. You don't invented that. You're gathering all the knowledge, and actually you're the diamond that is polished because of many previous generations. So what I observe in artists very often, when someone represents very nice skill, it's of course your personal work, it's your workshop, but whatever you know, it's all actually things that people invented many years ago, and you're mastering that and pushing it further, so your next generations will make even better games, even better art. So that's your responsibility as an artist. So that's one thing. Another thought that is not so popular among artists on the first side is that building trust to artists is very difficult thing, because we don't work with time constraints, with technical limitations. Don't look at me like that. My friend is laughing at me because he's always limiting me. But that's actually very true, and time and technology doesn't support beautiful images, so that's always struggling. And if we try to do something extraordinary, there is always project manager, there is always producer, there is always someone who is watching us, and it's very hard to convince them that it's good to invest another 2 or 3 months into development of something to improve the quality. So building the trust is the very important thing. Later on, I will show how I think it could be possible. So I wouldn't be me if I wouldn't push something to the managers or asking them. So whatever I can tell about managers is I admire you, that you're working with the artists, that this work is not so easy, and sometimes communication is very hard. But the thing I would tell in one sentence is that I meet very often approach of working faster, that we should work faster, we artists should work faster. And actually I know what you mean, and I know what managers mean, but I do say that working smarter is more important thing. So creating smart pipelines and smart processes is the thing that leads us to the best quality. And actually, what helps me a lot when I'm working with the managers is the very precise expectations. So the skill of naming your expectations is very helpful, and that's not the thing of this respect if you're saying how things should not even should look like, but what impression should it bring, or what should elements support. And I think with the feedback is very difficult. I don't know how to make perfect feedback, but later on there will be a chapter about that. But about feedback, it's always we all need to rely to facts and describe our expectations. The things are difficult when we are involved emotionally, but what I recommend every manager that I'm working with is to not describing how should elements look like, but what feeling should it bring, because it's so much easier to communicate according to the art. And talking about goals and are we there, and what's the main target? It's very helpful, but telling artists how to work, it's not a good thing, because actually they should be responsible for themselves. If they're not doing that well, that maybe they shouldn't work in the industry. But the funny thing what I observe is it comes from lack of trust. Is hovering art directors. Do you know, guys, what does it mean, hovering art directors? This is a guy who is standing just behind you and pointing to move something, 1 pixel right, 1 pixel left. So there is a website, hovering art directors, and there are many snapshots of people who are standing over artists and telling them what to do. So that's my favorite page for lunch, and that's very funny. And actually, micromanagement is a very interesting thing. Pixel pushing, of course, in theory, it's a very wrong thing, but actually, it comes from unclear criteria very often. So precise brief and focusing on how instead of what is so much helpful. There was a nice presentation on Game Access event a few weeks ago. I totally recommend you guys presentation of Mark S. Dale. He's the owner of voice recording studio. They were making voiceovers for many studios and many games. Very impressive thing, and actually very smart guy. And what he told me is that working with actors is talking about emotions that they should bring, and talking about the feeling that they should bring through their body, through their voice, because that's their plastic. That's their artisan. And showing actor how should he move, or imitating how should he scream, is the worst thing ever, because actually he will do it just the same way as you're showing them to, because they know their body, their voices. So imitating and showing things to actor is very wrong thing, and that's what I see very often in game development as well. So telling people how should we work on, how should something look like, it's not a good thing, because we will do just the same thing as you say. So, and it will not look good, because actually you're guessing it's going to look good, and if someone is very kind, he's going to do whatever you ask, and actually that's not the thing that you want to reach. So tips and hints, there should be that kind of a screen in every presentation. First thing is communication. Speaking clearly is very difficult thing for me as an artist, because I think by cloud. And talking precise briefs, or saying precisely what I mean, what I need to achieve, is very hard for me. So I observe it very often. We are talking about many things around. We're making many meetings, which are very bad for me. I hate meetings, and I think it's burning money and burning time. And very often we communicate about the little details that are leading us to the final project, and that's actually very weak, because we should think of the bigger goal, the project, the context, and thinking about the main goal. And talk about pieces is, I mean, the things artists do. We should isolate that from personal feelings, because what I see, we all are working very emotionally involved. So if someone gives me critique for my pieces, I try to listen to what's about this particular piece. Sometimes it's very harsh, but what helps me a lot is to cutting this emotional impact, and actually that keeps me away of silly conversations about so maybe you'll do this better or something like that, or maybe so we'll back to the first idea that I was showing you a few weeks ago, and actually you're changing your mind. It's natural thing, we're all changing mind, that's one thing. And the second thing is that we are designing things through iteration once again. So we always making loops and reaching somewhere, but talking about abstract level of element of the element that we are designing is so much better. So about feedback, it's very difficult according to giving feedback to artists because one emotionally involved, of course, but praising team members is very important thing for me, and I learned it and I've learned it for 4.5 years now when I'm lead concept artist, and I thought I'm appreciating people as much as possible, but actually what I hear is that I'm not doing it at all. So there is a theory of appreciating people 5 times more doing good feedback than to one critic, which is actually something that we want to change. So what I'm trying to do is to convince managers, and actually you guys here, to appreciating yourself, because very often when I see artist is sitting at his desk and the manager or designer or producer is approaching him, he's expecting he's going to hear something bad or something critical from manager or designer side. And very rare there are situations when someone is approaching and saying, dude, I really like what you did, don't change anything in this piece. So it's very cheap, you can do this anytime, and actually that's very helpful. And another thing is creating bright criteria, bright brief, something measurable helps a lot, doing feedback. So doing briefs is a helpful thing. It could be, for instance, scale, range, weight, speed, agility, if we talk about characters, let's say. So something that we can measure and see the image and compare it to the brief. Or emotional, it could be environment that we design and talking about, does this space bring emotion of fear or confusion, admiration, or disgust, or mawkish. It could be whatever you want, but talking about emotions is so much better level. I just want to bring one case. There was a situation when I was doing Hellraid game, and my producer approached me and asked me to make more flames in the room because he wanted to build tension and some kind of emotion of hellish atmosphere. And actually what we achieved is the warm, peaceful spirit atmosphere of grandma's hood, because there were fireplaces all around the place, around the spot. So that was totally opposite thing that he wanted to achieve, and I did it because he asked me to, and I wanted to be polite. And actually that wasn't good example of cooperating. So another thing is the pipeline. So this scheme shows my idea for my observation of working with amateur concept artists in the beginning before they get into the industry. Very often artists are very attached to the first idea, making very little, looking for different variations, brainstorming, and actually they expect it will be tweaked a little bit, then they will get feedback from the team and tweak it once again. Few iterations, like 4 or 5 of them, and then they will reach the goal. Actually, it would be perfect if this process would look like this, but in the end, it just limitless. It's just it never ends, because tweaking one element is never a good solution. My proposition is to what we are doing in Academy of Fine Arts, in high schools of art, is doing plenty of sketches and very rough ones. Communicate with everyone, talking, getting feedback. It's very cheap. It doesn't take much time. Then you're picking few elements that are very different, and actually you're tweaking them because you all agree for them, and choosing one, tweaking the one, and reaching, leading it to the final stage. And this time, shrinks like 3 or 4 times. So I don't know why young artists doesn't want to invest in this stage. They are very attracted by this level of quality, and I think media is responsible for that. It's like, it's media, but when you type concept art on Google, you'll see beautiful images. So this is the lie that everyone thinks it's a concept art, but concept design and visual development, it's all here. So actually those rough sketches are the most important thing and actually the most interesting stage of the of work, and that's very nice for cooperating in the teams, and that's very respectful for your friends, that you're not covering your piece of paper or screen. Sharing those ideas earlier is so much cheaper for all of us, and actually we're reaching the best solutions, because 70 brains or even 3 brains are so much more efficient than 1 brain. Outsource. It's the worst. It's the most difficult thing for me when I was working on previous games, because you don't see people, you don't hear them, you don't know them, and you write emails. So writing emails is the thing that I've learned very hard way. And Gosia Mitrenga, which is our manager, was our manager of Outsource, she was giving me lessons how to write emails, how to feedback artists online, and how to talk to people from different places of the world. Because actually, that's very important thing, how to name your expectations through text. And sometimes people got pissed off because I used 1 word which is just very heavy for them. It wasn't heavy for me. And another thing is you got to know who you hire, because differently. The work goes differently when it's a kind of alpha star, the designer which you take because of his style, and actually you're paying crazy amount of money for every hour that he spent on your project. Or it's totally different when it's just a typical asset that we need to put in our game, and actually that kind of cooperation is completely different. You can name your expectations. You should name your expectations very, very bright in any case, but it's slightly different thing. So you know to know your. We got to know our contractors to treat them well and communicate with them. When I'm working with outsourcer, I'm trying to see what his previous works and actually what's his strengths. And there are many examples that I messed up. Making proper scope is very important thing as well. Measurable stages and milestones helps a lot. The most frustrating thing I have observed is the pushing the line of the line of time, or just changing the scope. It's just the worst thing for the artists, because it's very disrespectful. It's good to have. It's very difficult, but it's good to have technical guide and art guide, because whenever we work with the artist, it's good to have kind of Bible that artist is following, because of quality and technical constraints. And those 2 elements are very important. It's easy for us when we work on in-house, because you can actually play this game, see how it works, see how different elements look like, and it's impossible on outsource. So creativity, of course, it's very important, and Previously, a few minutes ago, I said about this blue sky field, and you think that we like working on big field and freedom in freedom, but actually that's not true, because creativity comes from constraints. When the scope is very thin, then the creativity is the biggest. When you know how do players move, how does opponents act, how the environment looks like, what's the lighting, what's the animation, what's the number of details that you can put in the scene. There are so many different things. For instance, in Dying Light, there was so many constraints because of natural movement when we were doing environment. So constraints brings the biggest creativity ever. We do creative Mondays. There are a few hours that we create some things outside the project, and actually that's a very difficult thing for every management and for every manager, because actually how to convince anyone to invest in something that doesn't get into the production. But actually people grow in that time. They know, getting to know each other. They appreciate each other. You guys can see how spectacular things appears in 1 hour or 2 hours. So I totally recommend to make that kind of things. And about creativity and growing of artists, there is a theory of doing it all. So it tells about doing sculpture, painting, singing, playing things, because brain works differently and beginning to be more agile and working on abstract field when brain has a different communicates. And the team. I said a few minutes before that many brains are better than one brain. That's very true. And what I like a lot is that the team gives feedback for each other. I'm trying to stay away and actually listening how people support each other and how they are tweaking their own works is very it supports their creativity, their self-confidence, and having self-confident artists is a very good thing in the positive way. And actually you can find your own mentors in-house. It's so much cheaper. And then people are getting to have bigger distance to their pieces and to the project. And the stress. Every time I approach artists, I hear that the piece doesn't look nice because it's not ready. It's not true. Those changes are the most beautiful thing. And for instance, the nature, in theory, doesn't like changes, but there is an example of coral reefs that are growing outside the calm seas, calm ocean, and on the side of the calm water, coral reefs are very weak and short and less colorful than on other side. So struggling with the ocean is the most efficient way to grow, and actually struggling and a bit stress is kind of good thing, but of course I'm not saying about destroying people. And the dynamic environment and changes, and actually we are very good, so that's why I think games are a very good field for artists as well. It's like a trip. So you're always stressed before trip, and after that you're very happy. And there is a skill being afraid of skill level, so it's always like I'm not good enough, and investing in your own strengths is the best way of developing. There are a few approaches for growing, and actually some of the philosophies are investing in the things that you're lacking. But in my opinion, I see it's good to attach to the things that you know well, and then spreading it to the bigger scope. And motivation, it comes from, of course, good feedback. What I learned a lot is I'm trying to avoid sentences like it's okay, but it's not enough, mediocre, these negative words. I'm trying to using words like invest in that, yes, focus on. It's more focusing on good things, and then everyone knows that everything outside that is thing to tweak. And burnout is the most common thing when you're working a lot and in long-time projects. So changes are frustrating, but actually that's very predictable in the game development, because we're getting up to work, and actually we should think change, because change, that's the only constant thing in game development. What I love is that people are making their personal projects. So what I completely recommend to artists or anyone is to keep some energy for personal pieces outside after work, because whenever you work on yourself, you grow, and actually your friends are appreciating you more, and showing it to them is very respectful, and that builds good relationships in work. And actually the best solutions that we achieved in our games was taken from outside those ideas that was taken from outside the box, and some pieces were created after work by our concept artists. Right now we're trying to keep those creative ideas during the daytime of our work. So creative hours is one of the solutions, but doing something near the team, which is sitting next to you. If you're tired by the things that you do every day, there are many teams or many friends that are working on different pieces, and actually you can support those teams that are sitting next to you. Every manager would agree with that, but if you're burning out, you can actually ask manager to do something different and support the project or the company. I don't know anyone who didn't agree for that. And the most important thing is the industry. So we are working in the industry, so artist is something connected with the individuals, and industry denies it in theory, but the cooperation of those two elements is just amazing, and that's the beauty of our field that we're working on. It's more about visual design, cooperation, and teamwork, in my opinion, and actually that's what I observed in Poland for 2-3 years now. Previously, I saw so many illustrators that were doing beautiful arts and didn't think about visual design, and actually everything changes now. So this is the best time to say it loud, and that's why I wanted to make this talk here. And that's everything. Thank you.
So now the Q&A session. I'm sorry, but we have just a couple of minutes to do it, but blame it on the media, okay? But we don't have much time. Yeah. So who wants to ask the first question? Oh, okay.
Far away.
It's fine. So is working with artists a nightmare or not?
It is. Okay. It is. I'm an artist, so I can say. I hate working with myself.
I work as a freelancer, and I usually have a binary feedback from my work, and yeah. I found out that talking about other stuff, like for example what films we like, what books, about everything, yeah, somehow unlocks my clients, and then we can find some common ground to talk about. And do you think that is very important, or how important it is to find this common ground to?
Crucial. It's very even you're working as a freelancer, so catching the context is the most important thing, because before you start working, you're actually doing two things. You're making research, so cultural references, what are other examples of the elements that you actually do, and second thing is references, so how those elements are built. So there are two different things, and context, the cultural context is the most important thing, even if our company with our boss.
I was talking rather like talking with the guy, like knowing the guy, like the client, like talking with him and getting him know better. So knowing what he likes, knowing what he doesn't like, and how that is important.
Oh yeah, I like doing Skype with my outsource artists because I know how they think, what's their sense of humor, which is very important, what they like, and actually we can connect easily. When I'm writing emails with them, that's how we know each other. This personal element is very important for me. When I'm working on outsource, it's very crucial. So whenever we will talk, I would like to make a Skype with you.
And after some time of getting those people later, do you feel that difference in feedback and like when you are when you get this person at first and after some time, do you feel the difference between the feedback in this time?
According to communication?
Yeah. Okay.
I can feel that because it's like brotherhood. Then you survived something. Any more questions?
Any more questions?
Okay.
So, ready? Too many managers afraid of the nightmare if they have questions?
I want to say I'm sorry if I offended you. Sorry, I look like.
You offended only the media. That they're blamed for everything.
It's
Bad
Google.
media. Okay.
I have one more question, sorry, because you are responsible for artists and for giving them feedback. Did you ever had an artist, without throwing any surnames or whatever, that was a total diva? For example, you gave him or her feedback and they went crying or something.
Yeah.
Really?
And this person knows about that this person has to work on that and actually, but sometimes it happens and you just need to wait to him or she come back. Or then we're getting back to the field. Okay, so once again, can we talk about this? Are you okay? And let's get back to that. So it takes time sometimes. It's like...
More questions? Or okay, so I would like to...
one more.
More questions. But
how long does it take for a beginning artist that is starting to work in your company to actually adapt? Do they do it instantly?
No.
Like stress or something like that?
Yeah, everyone is very stressed in the beginning. Changes. There are three biggest stresses: death of someone close, changing work, and
changing the apartment.
And something else. Sorry, I am very stressed, but sorry. But changing work is one of the biggest stresses in our lives, and fear of acceptance of environment is the greatest fear we all have. Me here standing in front of you, I'm very stressed because I'm telling things very obvious for you guys. But actually, there is a time which we call onboarding. And that's the time we are learning from the person that we hire, what's their approach, what's their experiences, because that's the beautiful thing that we actually hired this person for the reason, and we want to have this person. So it's mostly about listening to each other. Then we actually can start doing something. It's like. With everything, you can't start your car and just speeding up because after the few that kind of shots it would break. You can't start running without warm out.
So it's like you need to constantly invest your time in
Yeah,
the person. Like
and it pays off.
One-time single investment.
Yeah, it's like calling it the cold way. Yes, it's like investing, because the same is with the creative hours. You're losing time, but you're gaining the power. It's like a training. You can fight only. You have to work out. Oh Jesus! It's so much.
We need to end. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Thank you
But
very much.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dziękuję.